Anybody comes from an imperfect family, that's what we're going to talk about this morning, learning from Joseph. I love the story of Joseph because he is an overcomer. And I think we really need to hear his story because we live in what sociologists for the last decade have called a victimhood culture. Where it's so easy for people, not an honor culture, not even a guilt culture, but it kind of like, if you want status, claim to be a victim. Feel like you are a victim of your circumstances. But Joseph is a great example of, Romans 8:31. If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:37. No, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. Joseph was a conqueror, and so can you and I be. And we want to begin today by talking about overcoming a messed up family background. Nobody has a perfect family background. You see that cartoon of the convention of adults from healthy families, normal parents? Not really well attended, because all of us have parents who were not perfect, except Pat Ferguson. His parents were about as close to perfect as possible if you got to know them at all. But this morning we're talking, Joseph has a messy background. If he could overcome, you can too. I want to introduce you to Joseph's parents, to his brothers, and see what we can learn along the way. Genesis 37 verse 2 is the first time we read Joseph's name. Actually, the second time. But at age 17, Joseph tended sheep with his brothers. The young man was working with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought a bad report about them to their father. Now, there's a ton of backstory to that. Bilhah and Zilpah, what's going on there? To really fully understand Joseph's life, you have to go all the way back to Genesis 27, when Jacob, his dad, is a young man. Jacob cheats his brother Esau out of his inheritance. And as you might expect, Esau is none too happy. He threatens to kill Jacob, vows to kill Jacob. And so Jacob has to flee north to his uncle Laban's house. We have a map here of kind of what that journey would have looked like. Well, at Laban's, he actually finds himself kind of blessed. Not only is he really able to prosper there and as a farmer, but he notices Laban's daughter Rachel. Verse 16-29 says, Laban had two daughters. The older was named Leah, the younger was named Rachel. Leah had tender eyes, but Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Some translations say that Leah had nice eyes or weak eyes. Whether you call them nice eyes or weak eyes or tender eyes, I think this is a euphemism. If you want to really read this as I think it is communicating, it's saying Rachel had the beauty of a supermodel, but Leah had a really good personality. And Joseph was attracted to Rachel. Verse 18, he loved Rachel, so he said to Laban, I'll work for 7 years for your daughter Rachel. Laban says, you got a deal. Better that I let you marry her than somebody else. Shake hands. Verse 20, I think, is one of the most romantic verses in the Bible. So Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. That's not what we expect to read, is it? Kind of expect to read, he worked 7 years, and they seemed like an eternity because he loved her so much. But no, for Jacob, it was like 7 years wasn't too much to have to work because he loved Rachel so much. You think Rachel felt loved? Boy, if romance is found in the pursuit, when a guy loves a woman, he'll wait. And so he works for 7 years and discovers that old Uncle Laban is a shyster. The wedding day arrives. The wedding happens at night. I'm not quite sure exactly how the switch took place. The veil probably is really thick over the bride's face. Jacob probably got 4 sheets to the wind. Verse 22 says, so Laban invited all the men to a place and sponsored a feast that evening. Laban took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and he slept with her. I'm sorry, I'm just imagining what it's like when Jacob wakes up the next morning. Sun is coming through the windows. He's able to see clearly. He's sober. He rolls over. He looks at Leah and says, you know, my mom warned me that women are not usually as attractive in the morning as they were the night before. But this is ridiculous, you know. I've never noticed how much Rachel resembles her sister Leah. That's not Rachel, that's Leah. He jumps out of bed, runs over to Laban's house, says, what in the world have you done to me? Wasn't it for Rachel that I worked for you? Why have you deceived me? And Laban says, slow down there a little bit. It's not our custom in our country to give the younger daughter in marriage before the firstborn. There's no record in the ancient Near East that was a custom in the ancient Near East. In India, yes, but not in Upper Mesopotamia where they are. And don't you think that if this were the custom, there may have been some time in the last 7 years that Laban could have brought it up to Jacob. Verse 27, Laban says, complete this week of wedding celebration, and we'll also give you the younger one in return for working yet another 7 years for me. Laban's farm has prospered like never before with Jacob working for him, and now he has his hooks in Jacob. He's not wanting Jacob to go, and so he thinks he knows how to get 7 more years at least out of him. Verse 28, so Jacob did just that. He finished the week of celebration, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. And Laban gave his slave Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as a slave. Jacob slept with Rachel also, and indeed he loved Rachel more than Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years. This home is not civil war. Jacob doesn't want to be married to Leah. He wants to be married to Rachel. He's not in love with Leah. He's in love with Rachel. This is Cold War that you're about to witness. You may call it a non-traditional family, this polygamy. You have 2 sisters married to the same man, and they are constantly comparing and competing, and their method of competition is babies. Jacob and Leah have 4 sons together. Rachel's not able to conceive. So in chapter 30, verse 1, when Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, see, one of the ways to raise yourself, for a woman to be raised in esteem in the ancient Near East was have sons, especially. She envied her sister. Rachel envied Leah now. Give me sons, she says, or I'll die. Not just a little bit histrionic, is she? James 3:16. By the way, underline that word envied if you have your Bibles open or you're following along on your phone. James 3:16 says, where there is envy and selfish ambition, there is disorder and every evil practice. That is true in a company, that is true in a nation, that is true in a home. This home is about to experience chaos. It is chaotic and evil. Verse 2, Jacob became angry with Rachel and said, am I in the place of God? He has held offspring from you. Then she said, here's my maid Bilhah. Go sleep with her, and she'll bear children for me. That's legally how it would be in those days. And so what is Jacob to do? He wants to please his wife, and so, okay, whatever makes you happy, and has 2 sons with Bilhah. Well, Leah sees this, and it's like the competition is on. Leah can't have any more children at this point for some reasons, so she says, here, take Zilpah, my slave, and gave her to Jacob as a wife. And Zilpah had 2 sons with Jacob, then for Leah, and then Leah is able to have children again and has 2 more sons. Now Jacob has 4 wives, 10 sons, 1 daughter, in a house that is filled with envy and insecurity. But Rachel, the wife he loves the most, the one he most wants to have a family with, is still barren. Finally, she conceives. Verse 23, Rachel conceived and bore a son, and she said, God has taken away my disgrace, and she named him Joseph. Can you imagine what that day was like in that family? Jacob and Rachel could not have been happier. This was what they had wanted, looked forward to since the day they were married. And now Leah and the other moms know the competition is over. They can have 100 sons at this point, and they will not equal the value, the love that Jacob and Rachel have for Joseph. They say a functional family has 4 characteristics: mutual love, respect, humor, and healthy boundaries. If this is a baseball game, Joseph's family is batting 0, zippy, 0 for 4. Grandfather has trapped his dad into marrying a woman he doesn't want to be married to. His mom and stepmom are about as friendly as Giants fans at an Eagles game. It is a family teeming with tensions and rivalries and insecurity. The old plaque says, when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. The newer version of that says, when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. When grandma ain't happy, run. We have 4 very unhappy moms here when Joseph is born. It's not a blended family at all. What kind of child can grow up normal in a home like that? To make matters worse, when Joseph is young, they make a traumatic move back to the other part of, back to where Jacob grew up. And when you just thought it couldn't get any worse, Joseph's mom dies, giving birth to his little brother, Benjamin. And now Joseph will grow up in a family with 3 stepmoms who are insecure and rivals, who don't think too much of him, brothers who are hostile and competitive and insecure. That'll impact Joseph the rest of his life. Young people, your behavior right now is going to impact your future and your children. It's a good thing to learn here from Joseph's story. Who you are today, while you are still young, will not just impact you in the future, but it'll impact those you love. And if you have children, it'll impact your children as well. See, sometimes it's easy to think, well, I can live however I want to live when I'm young, and then I'll ask God's forgiveness and I'll get over it and put it in the past. Or you're told, hey, the college years, they're the party years. Live it up. Have sexual encounters. You can deal with it. It'll be fine in the future. But the Bible tells us, nature teaches us that you reap what you sow. And if you sow weeds, you're going to get weeds. The Bible teaches the consequences of the father's sins are handed down to the children to the 3rd and 4th generation. Don't we see that when moms are addicted to drugs and so are their babies? It's not the baby's fault. Don't we see that in Gaza right now? Innocents suffering because of the sins of the fathers. We see that in the moral rot of today because of the seeds that were sown in the 60s and 70s here in the United States. And by the way, don't expect to easily erase those memories of your wild years. If you talk to Christian counselors, they will tell you that they counsel couples all the time that are struggling in their marriage because they can't get over the memories and the experiences that they had when they were young. Now, the good news is God's grace is greater than your sins. But sin still leaves a scar. The really good news is obedience today can be a blessing to your children, to the 3rd and 4th generation. I've shared with you many times how thankful I am that my dad never drank. My dad, when he was a little boy, saw his dad and his uncles were drunks. They were alcoholics. Dad said they couldn't drink without getting drunk. And so Dad, as a young boy, said, I'm not going to drink. I don't want that to affect me. And so he didn't. And so he taught us too. He said, Andrew's boys can't drink. Don't drink. Taught us all not to drink, or else, because you don't want to go down that road. And my dad stopped the cycle of alcoholism in my family because he made a decision when he was a little boy. And it blesses me and blesses my kids. The decisions you make today can be a blessing to those who follow you. Joseph's parents made a pile of bad decisions that he and his brothers will have to deal with literally the rest of their lives.